Hey everyone, welcome back to a brand new video from Yamparalamedia. I'm your host Rahul, and in today's video, I'll be walking you through my recent project or recent study which I done on password UX. So without further ado, let's get started. To access the material, you can go on to my site which is yamparal.design, and on there you can find studies tab. So clicking on it, you will find two sub contents. One is UX of password creation, which we'll be seeing today. So clicking on that, a page will open with a lot of content. So starting with, this is a case study which I did referring to Entitle. Entitle provides a product called as Insights, which helps users with installed base analytics and much more, which you can see about it at entitle.com. So B2B companies doesn't rely on Google or Microsoft or other authentication ways because those have a security concern that if those companies go down, their authentication to the application will also go down. That's the reason B2B companies doesn't rely on authentication provided by Google, Microsoft and other companies. That's the only main reason they rely on email and password. And coming to the password, I have found that in Entitle itself, in the last 6 months, users are going to forget password page monthly 7 times. In an overall perspective, in a B2B sector, around 11 hours are wasted every year because of this frustrating process of creating a password which they can remember. So this being the why we are doing this and why it is important. If I go down, you can see that around 20 plus B2B enterprise forms I audited and found various different things. It is related to how these forms show the password, how these forms show the strength of the password when it is required, and how they handle the requirements also, the error case and everything. Coming to the Entitle, the problem is that when a user enters any information, it is validated when on exit. It is not that live, which seems like an error state initial instead of showing it as an initial step that the user need to achieve. So this is the problem that we are tackling. And in a simple terms, if I want to explain it, it's something like you forgot your keys with an urgent need to use the bathroom. So that's the scenario which we are covering here. So if you go down, you can see this section where I audited the current design, which you can see there are 3 major problems in here. Number 1 is the requirement, which is thrown over the users when they are trying to go to the next step, and it creates a cognitive load which is a very high one and makes the process frustrating and not so good. Second is there is no way that the password the user can see or hide. And the third thing is the user is not aware of the strength of the password, whether the password that they have created is a weak one or a strong one. So if you go down, so I started doing the solution one by one, starting with the requirement. And the summary of this one is that you need to keep the requirement as much as less so that it is the user would store it in a short-term memory and there should be not much increase in the cognitive load. And the first clear enough solution comes up to is to fully show it as it is, how it is already there, but in a structural format, which you can see in the try one. So I showed it, but the problem in here is that it feels like a text heavy and challenges the users for their attention span. We don't have much of time to convince the user to read these requirements and follow them one by one. And there should be some motivation or some validation and also an indicator that they are progressing, which we will solve in this one. So if you'll go down, you can see that I started with UX copy because the text heaviness can be reduced as a first layer if you reduce the number of characters. And for that, there are 2 things. One is the title, which is the password requirement, and another one is the actual requirements. So I have done a study and come up with a lot of different copies, and I related it with emotions. And finally, I picked up the strong password should contain text because it is clear and instructional. I picked this one because our users are business people and they are motivated to use the application because of company mandate, and for them the text and the copy should be clear and instructional. So that's the reason I have picked this one. If you go down, you can see the how I created the requirement copy. So now text side, you can see there are a lot of restrictions, and also you need to check the highest 10,000 common passwords, which are sequential patterns. So that considered, because of those common password, it is a security concern. Users just for the name's sake they create the password on the application to bypass it, but that should not be the case. So here the finalized requirement on the UI was at least 8 characters, upper and lower case fee letters, a symbol, and no sequential patterns. So once these requirements and the copy are finalized, I started working on the requirement visually. So there are 2 ways to show this. One is explicit and one is implicit. Implicit is already applied, and we went with explicit because it gives more clarity, and also but it's much more better than implicit because it is easier for eyes to scan and do it one by one. Next is how I show it as a safer initial state, because having a cross and a red color to the requirement shows it as an error state, which makes user that okay, I have done some mistake, but they didn't make any mistake. It's a step, it's a process. So I reduced the contrast. I made it as a gray and used a circular cross button so that it feels like a more initial state. Next is icon selection. So there are many ways how I can select an icon for this one. Like each one of them is being completed in a sequential manner. So we can use tick mark if they have already used it. We can use explanation mark if they didn't use it, or we can use a cross mark. But contradictory to the complete across icon sets better than the empty radio type or a warning type of the icon. So chosen icon is cross one. So these are the couple of iterations that I went with to how I choose the icon. If I go down, you can see the error state, how I designed it. So the error message comes below the main text, which is strong password should contain. The reason to come below this is because it is much more easier to read it, and they can also see what steps they have missed. So I'm not only showing the error, I'm also showing them that what caused it, and they can solve it immediately. So next solution is to show the password. And the reason is, if you don't show the password, there are much more chances that the password the user will create will have typo errors. And if they have typo errors in the password creation, they will definitely forget it. And the number of chances that they will come onto the forgot password screen will increase, which we don't want. So to show the password, there are three ways that we can do it. One is I button, second one is I plus text button, and third one is simple text button. But using an I button is a dilemma, because number one reason is there is no icon standards for what an icon means, which you can see in these. There are three types, so it's not standardized to use it. Plus there is another problem that in a different application, the applications uses the icon in a different manner. In Adobe, you can see an open icon is used to show the password, while on X, Twitter, the open icon is indicated to password hidden. So there is a confusion, and these conflicting implementation confuses the users who frequently switches between these softwares. So solution for this I icon is to show the text or to go with a checkbox option. The reason I'm going with the checkbox option is because it is more clear. It avoids potential confusion because it's very clear. If you check mark it and what the text shows it, the password will be shown or hidden respectfully, and there will be a security consideration also. Now next is that if the technical team is more strong enough, there are two scenarios that you should be covering when you're creating a password field. On mobile, by default you need to show it because it is much harder to type on a mobile screen, and plus on the keyboard it is very much visible that what you're typing. So by default, unmask your password on mobile, and on desktop you need to hide it because on desktop there is a chances that the other person can see it from a diagonal way, but on mobile it is not possible because you can alter your movement. So that's the scenario. On mobile you need to unmask it by default, and on desktop you need to mask it, which means you need to hide the password on desktop. Next is strength indicator. So this is why we are going with strength indicator, is because for the namesake people are creating passwords, which is not a good thing. We want them to create a stronger password and also complete the requirement. So for this case, there are a lot of different progress bars which we can use. Step indicator, one is step ones, gauge, and other ones. And we went with the progress bar, but there is another choice that we can go, which is to highlight the field itself, which you can see in the visual try T1. But the complication is that this is technically becomes harder for the developer to implement it, and to reduce the development time, we went with the T2, the try 2, where the progress bar changes its color depending upon how the password is being entered and what requirements are being covered. You can read the reason why we choose it, and if you go down, you can see the last and end element, which is once the password is entered, if the user is not completing it and they go to the next field, will show them that this password is weak and they need to come back and edit it. It's a small improvement, a small indicator, but it is a valid one, which is very much required for the user to look back. And the product is shipped. This is a quick GIF, which you can see the interaction, how it works. The requirement comes only when the user types in, and it vanishes once the user has clicked on the other screen. Proof of concept, that these are the studies that already happened, and based on these I created a solution. If you want to know more into detail why this particular solution is being picked up for this particular problem, you can read about it. So this is an overall quick overview of this case study, the password UX. If you want to know more about me, definitely reach out, and if you like this video and would like to see more these kind of videos, definitely subscribe to my channel, and I will see you in the next one. Till then, keep designing and be happy.